Madden Benz Unfiltered here on TRIB Live. Thank you for joining us here on the video stream. Mark Madden from 105.9 The X and the Tribune-Review. Tim Benz here from Breakfast with Benz. Mark, I'd like to start the conversation today with something you touched on in our Madden Monday podcast when we were talking about the starters and how long they played, how long should they have played in that final preseason game against the Lions. The Steelers won 19-9 yesterday. You had mentioned that the injuries sustained by Diontae Johnson and TJ Watt, that you're not going to believe what Mike Tomlin says about injuries, and certainly rightfully so, even more augmented by what Najee Harris said after the game yesterday. We didn't talk about this on the podcast, but Najee Harris revealing that he's been dealing with a Liz Frank injury for the past month. That's way beyond just getting stepped on. And obviously that was something that was hidden by the Steelers for a month.
Well, if he was dealing with the Liz Frank injury, why did he play at all yesterday?
Exactly.
That I will criticize. The Diontae and TJ Watt injuries, stuff happens when you play football. And I think it was important for the Steelers to get some continuity and some cohesion by playing some of their guys, getting some of those units out there as a unit. But, Najee Harris, for him to play when there was any risk to further injury, that said, we don't know that. I'm not sure I believe him either. But in terms of what's wrong with Diontae and TJ, I don't think Tomlin knew at halftime definitively about either. I think he just said it to say it.
I think he said it to pacify, to mollify any concerns, and he knew that, so long as they weren't being carted off or walked off with significant injuries or breaks, that he could get away with saying that because, they don't play again until September 11th. There's a buffer there.
Well, right. But the Najee thing, I don't know, Tim, what do you think? Do you buy into what Najee's saying? Is he exaggerating? Wouldn't be the first time an athlete did that, would it?
Wouldn't be the first time, but
see, I just can't believe he played with a Liz Frank injury. I can't believe the Steelers would do that.
I don't know. I can't believe that being stepped on lasted a month.
Yeah, there's probably truth in there somewhere. I don't know. With injuries, even though they're mandated to tell the truth, the club is. I believe they very often don't.
Well, they're not mandated during camp, and I think that's why Tomlin abuses that whenever possible.
Right, because he likes to do it. He likes to get one over on us, that's for sure. But, yeah, I'll be honest, I don't care. Whoever plays. We'll find out, right?
Yeah, I just don't, to your earlier point, I just don't think it was necessary to play him if he's dealing with something that's a Liz Frank-related problem. Like, if this is, hey, you got stepped on and it was really bad for a month and you wanted to get some contact so you don't fumble the first time you get hit, okay. But if it's a Liz Frank thing, don't bother screwing around with it.
Either that or maybe Najee saw somebody on TV had a Liz Frank injury and said, wow, that sounds pretty cool. Got it from Sports Center. Figured, hey, that's better than being stepped on. It sounds like a big deal.
Well, is that sort of, so wait, are we saying that maybe Najee, as we get to know him a little bit more, is going to go down the Ben path? Like, remember when he had the
I hope so.
Rib, stabbing him in the heart?
I hope so, Tim. From your lips to God's ears.
All right, Mark. Well, how about TJ Watt and Diontae Johnson, them getting hurt in the game? How big of a problem is that in your eyes?
Depends how long they're out, but I don't have a problem with them playing. That cut block on TJ was kind of, over the top by that tight end.
And don't put him back in after that.
Again, it's a legal block.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, I want to know a little bit more about what was talked about between Campbell and Tomlin in advance, because Campbell did say that they spoke. Like, did they have a real ironclad, unwritten agreement that they were going to play these guys for a certain amount of time? Because I didn't see it. Like, I didn't see some of the Detroit defensive starters in there.
What, he said they spoke?
Campbell said that I talked to Mike Tomlin the week before the game.
I think that's a bunch of crap, too. I don't think coaches collude on who's going to play how long. What's it to the other coach? What difference does it make?
I didn't know if it was standard practice and we just don't hear about it or not. Whatever the case, they shouldn't feel obligated to put a guy back into a game after he's been cut blocked by the opposing tight end and may have hurt himself in the process. Like, that was where I thought it was egregious.
About stuff like this, it reminds me how much I hate football. How much crap there is that goes on that's just so petty. Tom Petty.
What about how they played and how they wrapped up the preseason? How do you feel about them going to the regular season now?
I have no feel at all based on how they did in the preseason because they played 3 crap teams.
And the backups for those teams.
As I wrote in my column, if there was a quarterback competition, Trubisky won it. I thought he played very well. I thought that 2-minute drill yesterday was sublime. I think Devin Bush looks terrible, but I saw afterwards, didn't Tomlin say that Miles Jack and Devin Bush are the starters at inside backer?
I wasn't there for Tomlin. I didn't get that
Brooke Pryor tweeted that. If that's all you got, that's all you got. But I thought Devin Bush looked terrible. He whiffed on that 3rd and 17 conversion on that draw play the Lions made. It's just a team with so many flaws. And we can look at the strengths, real or perceived. We can dwell on the quarterback duel, which never really existed, but it doesn't cover up their flaws. In particular, I think that offensive line, I've said this repeatedly, but it bears repeating. I think that offensive line makes it impossible for them to have a winning season. And when I say impossible, I mean it can't be done.
I want to hear from you, Steelers fans. I picked them to go 8-9, so I looked at the offensive line and deemed that to be the biggest problem as a result.
And by the way, Tim, here's stuff about that. You know that Pro Football Focus, the grading site?
Yeah.
You know, they graded out Dan Moore as having played well yesterday because he kept the quarterback clean. Yeah, except for those 2 holding penalties. Don't they figure in?
Right. And those plays, if he's not holding, then maybe the quarterback gets smushed, and we're not talking about a quarterback controversy.
We have found so many ways in all the sports to take the focus away from winning and losing and to come up with pseudo metrics that enable us to say anything we want about any player. If you can look at yesterday's game and grade Dan Moore out as having played well, that is absolutely insane.
Mark, do you think that, and this is clearly a hypothetical, but I guess I'll ask you, with Trubisky being the starter, although he wasn't officially named, with Trubisky being the starter, what's their record after 17 if he plays the full 17? And what would you say the record would be if Pickett was the guy to get 17?
Oh, I think it'll be about 7-10 either way.
So you don't see much of a difference then between either quarterback starting?
No, in terms of the winning, in terms of the record, no, yeah. I don't. I just want Trubisky to start because I think this team needs a bit of a veteran presence. I think it makes no sense to throw Pickett to the Wolves in those first 6 games. I think you can go from Trubisky to Pickett, but you can't go from Pickett to Trubisky because then your first-round draft pick failed. I think it was close. I think Pickett played fine in the preseason. I just think it was preordained that Trubisky was going to get the job. He did nothing to lose it. If there would have been a competition, he would have barely won it. I just think it's obvious to go with Trubisky. I mean, I can't come up with a single argument to play Pickett except, well, let's see what the kid does. You drafted him first.
Well, I think the argument would be, Mark, that to the point of how much of a difference is there between the records, if they're going to be 7-10 anyway, why not expedite Pickett's learning curve? That would be the argument.
Depends if you think getting absolutely destroyed by Bill Belichick in week 2 would expedite his learning curve.
Okay, now, well,
I don't believe it would.
That's where I tend to agree with you, is that the point that you made there about how you can go from Trubisky to Pickett and it feels like the natural order of progression, whereas if Pickett starts out, because my suggestion of how do they do in a vacuum for 17 games, you can't take away the variable of how did the quarterback play to get them to that record. So, like, to your point, if Trubisky starts out and they're 3-3 or worse, and you want to pull the plug after week 6 and give Pickett a chance, that feels like the natural order of progression.
Well, for me to pull the plug, they'd have to be 2-4 or worse after 6 weeks, but we're kind of on the same page. But, I believe that young quarterbacks are made of sterner stuff than for a bad start to, really throw them off progress. But that Belichick thing, I remember how it was with LeBeau and rookie quarterbacks. Belichick against Pickett in week 2, at the end of that game, the Steelers would have lost, and you could have Pickett wondering if he ever knew what he was doing in the first place. I want Pickett to avoid that game, period. In fact, I wouldn't even dress Pickett as the backup in that game. I would have Rudolph as the number 2, and I think Rudolph could be number 2 early in the season, although that debate is insignificant, doesn't bother me no matter how it turns out.
I think the natural breaks are after week 6 when they get through that crunch of games, including facing Brady in week 6 after facing Josh Allen in Buffalo in week 5. And the other one, if it's a little bit quicker, comes after the Browns game because there's a long lag there after the Thursday night contest. If they feel like
I still think that's too early to make a quarterback switch. But Tim, why are we talking about a quarterback switch already?
Because I think the offensive line is going to make the quarterback look bad.
I think the offensive line is going to make a quarterback get hurt, and then you have the switch, but that's going to happen organically and soon.
I think that, and I believe I heard you allude to this on your show, that Trubisky's ability to escape, while Pickett is very good on the move, Trubisky's ability to escape, his athleticism, his ability to gain ground with his feet, that might be as much of a reason to start him, even though that's not really a great reason to have to start him, but it might be true.
No. You're right, though. There's a difference between Pickett's mobility and Trubisky's escapability.
Correct, yes.
And I think we see that every preseason game. Although I do give Matt Canada credit. He's doing a lot of good stuff with moving pockets. It ain't going to work every snap, every game against every foe, but any port in a storm.
I do think the KZ injury hurts on defense because you could tell they were coming up with ways because they trusted KZ in the back third to free up Fitzpatrick a little bit to potentially make some plays.
Well, how bad is KZ hurt? How long is he out for? Do we know?
Well, Dulac reported that it was going to be potentially season-ending surgery, or at least surgery that was going to put him on IR. Now, I don't know if that means he gets to come back after 8 or what, but he walked away in like a sling, so it's not good.
Yeah, that's a shame, and maybe that affects what they do at inside backer with the dime stuff too, because that's one less usable weapon in the dime.
Right, and I don't know who the equivalent free safety is then that can go back, unless they decide they want Cam Sutton to be that guy and they put somebody else in the slot to play corner.
Boy, then you're really moving stuff around, ain't you?
You are, and that's why KZ was kind of valuable, because honestly, he could do both.
Again, we talk about all these holes, all these problems, and somehow the Yokels are imagining them as a playoff team. And it's going to happen, Tim, between now and the start of the season. Just about every local pundit is going to pick them to win 10 or 11 games. I don't know, 10 or 11 games. That's a good team. You can always count on a Mike Tomlin coach team to play disciplined football. And that's the national guys, too. You watch.
How much of a new playoff tree do you think you see in the AFC, Mark? Like, there are a lot of people who think that the Raiders are going to backslide, that the Steelers will lose an extra game or two, that the Patriots are going to backslide, that Cincinnati won't replicate as many regular season wins.
I think the Chiefs might backslide.
Yeah, but I don't think they fall out of the playoffs, though. I think they might lose the division.
I think Denver might win 5 games with Danger Russ. We'll see how Danger Russ is. I think he's been overrated from jump.
I also agree that the Broncos have been inflated too much, especially in that division. I don't see it an automatic that they get to the playoffs, but they're a threat to sneak up. I think the Dolphins are a threat to sneak up. I think the Ravens and Browns within the division for the Steelers are both a threat to take one of those playoff
positions. The Ravens and Browns are such an interesting study because they're two teams, especially before Watson gets back for Cleveland, but both those teams seem determined to win by running the football primarily. And that's outdated. It doesn't work in this league, hasn't for quite some time, but with those rosters, maybe it will. With Cleveland, it has to until Watson gets back.
Yeah, especially with Baltimore because they have a quarterback who can really run. And like you said, they're gonna have to lean on it in Cleveland come hell or high water. And I'll be really interested to see where they sit in week 3 by the time the Steelers get there. But, Mark, let's go kind of league-wide here. A couple of stories over the weekend. First of all, how do you think the Ariza situation, the punt god who was let go by Buffalo, what do you make of that? Is that similar to the Watson thing at all in your mind in terms of how it was not the nature of the crimes, but how it's adjudicated?
Accused of is a lot worse.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the nature of the crimes. I'm
just
talking
like
about
what Ben was accused of was a lot worse. But white dude only got 4 games. I'm surprised we're not hearing that. There must be like a shut up clause with Watson's settlement. But yeah, I mean, I'm more disturbed by who knew what about the Bills punter. The media, the teams, why he fell in the draft and not out of the draft. There's some stuff going on there too. Although, again, I would like to see the courts get more involved. Rather, the courts more trusted, as in if you're criminally charged, you go on the commissioner's exempt list until you're guilty or innocent. If you're civilly charged, you go on the commissioner's exempt list until there's a settlement, and then you investigate. I think to cut this guy, I mean, I understand it. It's so tough to talk about this. You know that.
Yeah. I mean,
here, I'm going to take the safe way out, Tim. What this kid did is terrible. He should never play football again, unless he didn't do it. What Watson did is terrible. He should never play football again, unless he didn't do it. What Ben did was terrible, and he should have never played football again, unless he didn't do it. And anyway, in Pittsburgh, we didn't care because we just wanted our guy to play. It's a lot different if it's your guy.
Well, it's a lot different, too, if you're the one on Twitter and gets to spout off an opinion about what should be done, but eventually somebody in power has to make that decision.
Yeah, and again, I mean, you always...
nobody wants anybody to be in charge, Mark. That's what it comes down. Nobody ever wants anybody to be in charge.
Well, look at Goodell. He put in a new disciplinary system with an independent arbiter, and then he overturned the independent arbiter.
Yes, exactly.
You know, we're waiting to divine the will of the mob, what Twitter wants. And that's pathetic. And I hate talking about stuff like this because you're always made to feel you're defending Watson or defending Ben or defending the punter. And I am not. I'm just saying there's two sides to every story.
Yeah, and that's why due process exists. Now, it's a different type of due process entirely, but to your point about where Twitter is on this, Twitter doesn't seem to think that there's anything wrong with what Aaron Donald did, but Myles Garrett got 6 games.
Well, Aaron Donald obviously should be suspended, but, you know, it just – there's a loophole there, and the league wants him in uniform for that Thursday night game to open the season.
They could very easily step in and use the conduct unbecoming, which is kind of a catch-all. And, you know, what people, I think, are getting hung up on in discussing this is, well, the rule says that they can't govern what happens in a practice. No, it doesn't. The rule just doesn't say anything. The loophole you're talking about is the absence.
Pat McAfee said that you don't want to set a precedent. I think if there's ever been cause to set a precedent about disciplinary at practice, it's this. Because he looked like Godzilla rampaging through Tokyo. But you know what the attitude is too, Tim? Aaron Donald's great. Yay, football. Yay, football.
Right, and people are saying that about, well, look at all the great things. He helped out Penn Hills. He helped out Pitt and gave them a new weight room. Okay, Myles Garrett went to Eastern Africa and gave them clean water, for crying out loud. Like, we didn't want to buy that excuse when he hit Mason Rudolph, but we're more than willing to advance it for Aaron Donald.
Like every other situation, Tim, it's not what's done, it's who did it and your preconceived notion of him in the first place.
Yep, that does seem to go a long way. All right, we'll get some comments here in just a little bit. Steelers fans want you to post. Mark, I guess Dennis Eckersley wasn't wrong after all, was he?
Well, John Kruk.
Oh, John Kruk too, yeah.
John Kruk said that the Pirates looked like a college team playing a professional team.
Don't insult college baseball players that way.
I got to call out big time. The Pirates media, all of them, with the exception of maybe Parada, and the bloggers even worse, they are absolute stooges. Absolute effing stooges who will never put pressure on Nutting because they accentuate the positive in any situation. All I keep seeing is O'Neal Cruz's mile per hour off the bat, even though he's hitting 199. Roansy Contreras looks like he could be a top of the rotation starter. Yeah, my ass, maybe in AAA. He's like a 4 or 5 at the big league level. Whatever happens, any small bit of success sneaks through, it's the headline. They lost, what was the score, 14-2 to the Phillies?
Yeah, that was what, Friday night?
And it was their seventh, no, it was their 7th loss in a row, or 6th, whatever. They were getting killed, right? 14-2. The headline was O'Neal Cruz's record-setting miles per hour single. Tim, that was the headline everywhere. Everywhere where they covered the Pirates. Disgraceful.
Well, the statistical attachment to that game was the one that I saw that was going around Twitter, that they were the only team in baseball history since the St. Louis Browns of the 1950s, like 1551, to have consecutive seasons where they lost 5 games or more by 12 runs.
Well, the Browns moved to Baltimore, Tim. We can only hope.
Either Browns that you're going to be associated with, either one, you don't want to be in that regard, and that's what the Pirates were. All right, let's get to some comments here because we've got a lot of them.
I remember, Tim, a guy for, I want to say the 1949 Browns, which is that ballpark. Ned Garver won 20 games for a last place team.
How many times did he pitch?
162. No, I don't know. I think that was the year the little person batted too. I'm not sure.
Eddie
Gaedel,
Gaedel?
number 1-8.
Yeah.
And the next pitcher to win 20 or more for a last place team was Steve Carlton in 1972. He won 27 games to the Phillies. And Tim, I was a kid then. Like, the Pirates were good in 72.
Yeah.
There were a couple games where I went to the game and Steve Carlton, after the first inning, you were like, nah, we're not winning. Let's get some popcorn, Mom. We're not winning.
There are some guys in those Phillies teams. This is a little bit later. I'm fast forwarding the clock a little bit, but there are some guys in those Phillies teams that were just pirate killers. I mean, Carlton comes to mind. What about Greg Luzinski? I felt like Greg Luzinski would come up and hit a grand slam if nobody was on base.
You know who else did go? Was Bake McBride for them.
Oh, yeah, Bake McBride.
He was on the Cardinals, I think, too, but he always did great against the Pirates.
Did you see the Super 70 sports thing of Bake McBride that was going around last week? Oh, it was fantastic.
By the way, speaking of Super 70 sports, I got to say, Devin Bush stinks. I mean, he really stinks. But he got that Oscar Gamble throw thing going, and I like it.
Oh, Oscar Gamble. Yeah, he was made for Super 70 sports. Yes.
Oscar Gamble, man. I don't know how he put the hat on or the batting helmet.
All right, let's get to some comments here. This one comes from Steven, who says, the weaknesses outweigh the strengths. 6
wins.
No
kidding.
6 might be a little low. 6 is a little low.
I didn't see the 6. Well, Tim, I make my prediction the Friday before the first game, which is a week from this coming Friday. Oh, no, wait, it's this coming Friday, right? No, wait, no.
This Friday.
We got 2 weeks till the first game.
Yeah, the 11th is the first game.
So my prediction is almost 2 weeks away.
I'll go
right
with.
now, I'd say 7 and 10. Right now.
I'm gonna go with 8.
Noting in the last 10 years, I have only been more than 1 win off one time.
Yeah, I've been pretty good lately. I was the one that was trying to get 8-1 last year, and I came damn close.
And the only time I was off more than that was the year Ben blew up his elbow.
No, that doesn't count for anybody. Those predictions went out the window the minute that Ben got hurt against Seattle. I'm having trouble. Oh, here's Steven. Steven says Trubisky looked really good. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. He was stuck in a crap hole team and situation in Chicago. He was the number 2 pick overall. He was an off-season streak. Drafting Pickett so early was stupid. They drafted with their hearts and not with their heads.
I have no problem with having drafted Pickett. I just want them to handle the transition logically, and they are right now. If they think Pickett's the guy, then they were wise to draft him.
Yeah, if you think you've got a chance to draft your franchise quarterback for the next 10 to 15 years, you draft him and you worry about the guy you picked up on a maneuverable, easy-to-get-out-of 2-year deal later. Like, I don't have a problem with that. It's just the short term of the clutter that you created for yourself. You created the clutter, and it's there, and now they're going to have to deal with it. And a lot of that.
Right, but it was always going to be there anyway. Like, if you drafted whoever next year, the same process was going to occur probably at the same rate.
Eric says, due process is deceased. While I understand the optics of their Ariaza situation, why is someone automatically guilty and fired from their job the minute an accusation is levied? As bad as the story is, what's happening getting out all of the facts before saying, F you, you're a piece of crap, get the hell out?
Well, Tim, when he said the word levy, what came to mind is that crying won't help you, praying won't do you no good. But here's a question to ask. Would the punter have gotten cut if he was a quarterback? What if he were the top quarterback picked in the draft instead of the top punter?
No, I don't think if it's a 4th-round quarterback, no. Certainly if it's a higher draft choice quarterback, you just want to apply it to a different position, no. He's disposable as a 4th-round pick if he's a punter. Absolutely.
A lot of people had a problem, Tim, because he was a 21-year-old. Like, to me, the only issue here is consent. Okay? A lot of people had a problem, and obviously you can't get to be a bigger issue than that. But, 21 years old and 17 years old, I mean, doesn't that happen all the time in the naked city, technicality though it may be?
I didn't see any reports of the story, and there might be out there, and I just didn't read them, but I didn't see any reports of the story of what she said about her age. I don't know. I don't know if he was knowledgeable.
But if she's 17, she's 17. I mean, that's, it's underage and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, a lot of 21-year-olds, here's a nice way to put it. And again, this woman, I mean, this story sounds horrible. It does. And I as far as cutting him or putting him on the exempt list, whatever, he can't be involved with football right now. You know what the funny part's going to be, Tim? If this blows over, if this case gets thrown out, he'll punt again just for a different team. And the Bills will have been punished for their righteousness.
Yeah, that's right. If things get settled and he's allowed to come back. But I don't know, Mark, you think another team will be willing to take the PR hit that comes along with it?
Depends. Can he punt?
He can punt. I mean, that's
Yeah,
part.
I mean, probably it might take a while. But my point is, oh, I can't believe a 21-year-old had sex with a 17-year-old. Consent's the issue. Consent. 21-year-olds date 17-year-olds all the time, Tim. Am I right?
Well, yeah, and if it's 22 versus 18, it's the number of the law that matters, not necessarily the age gap.
Yes. This appears to be a terrible felonious act, even though it's not criminally charged. But it's just a terrible situation. We don't need to invent things based on technicalities.
Right. You can be outraged for the reasons to be outraged about it. And the reason to be outraged about it is the lack of consent. It's not the difference of 6 months or 3 months between whenever she would have allegedly turned 18. Like I said, I don't know if she had said she was 18. I haven't seen anything to that degree.
Well, and the problem with situations like this always is, and again, sympathy to everybody involved because it's a horrible situation. But if it turns out it's not true, he still may be done because you never can walk that back. The retraction's always on the back page. The accusation's always on the front page.
Richard says, as we get back to the Steelers here, terrible offensive line plus Devin Bush defaulting into being the starter equals sub 500 season at best, no matter who the starting quarterback is.
That's about right.
I thought Bush made one really nice play on the 4th down. I thought he gave up catch and coverage early to Hockenson. And like you said, Mark, he seemed to be unable to get off a block downfield on the 27-yarder. And that was the one that really stood out.
I think he's playing as if he's scared. Whether it's blowing up that knee again, whether he's just, figured he's not taking football that seriously anymore. I don't know. He looks scared out there.
And Calvin says the offensive line is in rough shape. You could tell that Najee was getting frustrated yesterday. He will try to do too much and get injured in the first couple weeks. Trubisky won't be too far behind. I'd say we win 5, maybe.
Again, I think more than 5.
I think that's low. I think
although Najee gets hurt, 5 might be the ceiling.
Well, that's true. Yeah, if he's out, because I don't think they have a real capable backup. And let me
tell you, Steelers fans, you would love for Najee Harris to get hurt. Why? Because then you'd have your excuse.
Joey says the last time local people talked about the Steelers like this, they won 15-1 and lost the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, that'll happen. That'll happen, Joey. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go.
I don't know. I think people were talking about them like this kind of in 2020, and they lost in the first round of the playoffs. People were talking about them like this when they were 8-8 in 2013. Let's not reinvent history here. There were other times post-Ben was kind of felt this way. I know what they're trying to do. The changing quarterback, and they're drawing that analogy. This isn't the same thing.
It's going to be a great season, Tim. I can't wait.
Mark, Liverpool had a great game before we go. I did not have Liverpool covering 8.5.
Well, I don't know what the spread was, but it was, less than 8.5. But yeah, great game. It's only against Bournemouth, but we needed a win of any kind so badly, and to get it convincingly and to get some young guys scoring. Harvey Elliott scored. Fabio Carvalho scored. They're both 19 years old. They're brilliant. They're the future of the team. The sooner they get going, the better. Just a lot to like about that game.
All right, Mark.
What I realized, Tim, I tweeted this.
What's that?
I love watching Harvey Elliott and Fabio Carvalho. 19 years old, the enthusiasm, the bravery that comes with being so good at a young age. They're so much fun to watch. And I said, boy, I probably won't live to see everything they do. And that makes me kind of sad. So Harvey, Fabio, get started quick. And you have.
Hopefully they're like Crosby and Malkin then for you.
Well, yeah, but that was a long time ago, too.
All right, so Mark and I are done for today. We will be back next week for Labor Day.
I will say, Tim, I hope those 2 kids, I hope they took swimming lessons.
Mark and I will be back on Tuesday of next week. We're going to do Tuesday because of Labor Day. But Mark, he cares about his radio audience so much, he will be doing a Labor Day show on Monday just for you.
No, I don't care that much. I just would rather have a different day off.
So make sure you're listening to Mark. I will be in for Mark on Tuesday and Wednesday. He will be back on Monday.
No, Wednesday and Thursday, Tim, please.
Wednesday and Thursday. That's right.
Right.
Then Tom is in on Friday, and then Mark will be back on Labor Day. And we'll be back for Madden Benz Unfiltered next Tuesday. The Madden Monday podcast airs as normal next week at Trib Live.